Welcome back to Extravagant Fragrances, and today we're here to talk about the top 8 mistakes that incense crafters make when they're first getting started. And you're probably going to be shocked when I tell you some of some of these mistakes, but some of it's just kind of hilarious. So let me get started here. One of the mistakes on this list is going to be I've actually had somebody tell me that they, like during the drying process, that they actually turned on the oven and they put the incense sticks in an oven because they think, like, I guess the sticks are going to get dried faster that way. So somebody put wet sticks in their oven to try to get their sticks wet. That is not what you want to do. If you want to know how to dry, I've got some videos that talk about the drying and whatnot of how to get your sticks dry. That is one way you definitely don't want to do it. The guy that told me who did that, he actually ended up, I think he ended up cooking his sticks. So yeah, don't put them in the oven. Storing them, okay? If you have unscented sticks and you want to have your sticks in a dry place, trust me on this. As well as another crafter that I know, he actually had like hundreds of boxes in like a warehouse, and it rained and some water got inside, and then like he was in one of the southern states, so you know how it gets humid in the summertime, and it ended up causing all of his sticks to become molded and just basically just destroyed all of his unscented sticks. So you always want to make sure that you have your sticks in a dry place, like a dry storage or something like that. Any place that's dry. Keep it out of moisture. Keep it away from water. Okay. One other mistake people make is going to be cutting your oil, cutting your fragrance oil too, or should I say, too little. Okay, and I've made this mistake where I put too little dipropylene glycol to make my incense oil, and like I said in one of the other videos, I talked about how when you're making your incense sticks, one of the main purposes of using a dipropylene glycol to make incense sticks is to keep the soot content down. You don't want black smoke all over your walls and all over your ceilings, okay? So that is one thing that I've learned, is that you can actually cut your sticks too little. So that is another mistake that I've made in the past. I've learned from that to kind of help perfect my skills with incense crafting. So that is one thing you don't want to do, is don't cut your oil too thin. Another mistake people use is cutting incense oil too far. That's an obvious mistake. You don't want to cut your incense oil too far, otherwise you're not going to smell the fragrance. So that's another one on the list of mistakes that crafters make when they're making incense sticks. I've even heard of someone, just reading some of the comments on the channel, one guy, he said that he used vegetable oil. Big mistake. You do not want to use vegetable oil on your incense sticks. It's just don't. Please don't. Okay, that's one mistake you don't want. Okay. Another mistake that I think should be on this list, this is going to actually make this probably 9 mistakes here, is using propylene glycol instead of dipropylene glycol. Can it be done? Yes, it can be done, but we're talking about stuff that goes into, propylene glycol is what goes into the stuff that they use, like e-juice and stuff like that for e-cigarettes. You don't want to use propylene glycol. As far as from what I understand, there's a certain amount of water content in propylene glycol. And so you definitely don't want to use propylene glycol when it comes to making your incense sticks, because if your sticks aren't thick enough, if there's not enough pulp on that stick to be able to hang with the amount of moisture that comes with propylene glycol, your sticks are going to keep going out. You're going to have to keep relighting them, and you're going to have a big, nothing but soggy sticks. You don't want that. Unless if you're using, like, let's say the big giant, if you're using a stick that's really thick, okay? If you're using, let's say, like I've got some of these, like these jumbo cones that are about like that thick, and they're about like 3 inches tall. If you're using like a really thick incense stick that can handle moisture getting into it, then maybe you might be able to get away with using propylene glycol as a cutting solvent to make your incense oil. But generally speaking, you kind of don't want to do that. It's not going to make a quality stick. And even if you do it, later on down the road, what's going to end up happening is your sticks will dry out a whole lot faster than they will as opposed to using dipropylene glycol. So that's one thing that I don't recommend using. Don't use propylene glycol to make your incense sticks. Okay, another mistake crafters make is using a handwritten label. Let's say, for instance, if you're going to be selling these, that's one thing. If you're going to be using them in the house, okay, who cares if you even label the bag or the package of incense sticks, or if you're going to give it away as a gift, right? But if you're going to be selling your incense sticks, one thing you don't want to do is use a handwritten label. Especially if you're making the sticks in the bag, or if the big sticks are still going to be kind of moist before you ship them out or give them to your customers, you don't want to have handwritten labels, because if the fragrance oil gets through the bag, it's going to cause your writing to smear on that label and nobody will be able to read it. So, as I said in the other video talking about labels, I highly recommend to use a laser printer, because like I said, you're not using, the ink isn't sitting on the surface of the paper, it's actually burned into the paper. So handwritten labels, try not to use handwritten labels. Even I would say inkjet labels. If you can avoid using inkjet labels, try to avoid that if you're going to be making your sticks fresh and they're still going to be kind of moist before you sell them. Now, if you do want to use a handwritten label or an inkjet printer, then just make sure your sticks are fully dry before you put them in the bag. That's the only thing, is just make sure those sticks are completely dry before you use your handwritten, written style label or whatever. So that's that. Another mistake, and I've learned this over the time, is if you're going to be making sticks in the bags, like I showed in one video, is dropping your sticks handle side down, right? So what I used to do is I drop it in the bag, pour my oil in there, let it sit for a little bit, turn it up, and kind of let it pour out. Well, with some sticks, you want to be careful with that, especially depending on the quality of your bags. I've ran into situations where I drop handle side up, like down, like the handle gets dropped down into the bag, and it starts to cause like a tiny puncture in the incense bag. And as a result, when I go to pour my oil in that bag, the oil busts out of the bag, and before you know it's spilling all over the place. So when you put your bundles in those bags, if you're going to be making incense sticks, kind of sit it down in there real nice and slow, and then pour your incense oil in there. And I find that to be the best way to do that. So these are my, I will probably say now it's probably like 9 mistakes, common mistakes that you will find with incense making. If you're new to incense making, try not to make these mistakes, and you will probably most likely have a good incense stick. So if you like this video, give me a thumbs up, share this video please, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Take care and have a good weekend.